But why do you think structural engineering is important for our lives? Because it's just like, if you think about it, like people just go with their life, they see buildings left and right, they just somehow appear there, somebody built them, but nobody thinks about how they were built and whether
That's
they're
true.
safe or not. So what do you think is like the purpose of structural engineering for our lives?
I think you touched on a really interesting point because when you think of the Twin Towers, you just take everything for granted that it's going to be there, it's standing, and it serves its purpose of commercial, residential, um, uh, real estate, and people go in and out and do their daily lives, but you don't feel that, you don't recognize that there is so much that goes into it. And now another mode of failure has been considered is projectiles and those type of impact crashes, which has never been a part of the building code, but there are some consideration of putting that into buildings now.
What do you mean
So
projectiles? Is it like...
well, like the buildings, if there's any failure, like the plane crashing into it, what would happen to it, and how would you anticipate designing something so that it would be resilient to certain foreseeable
Force.
forces? Yeah, that's right. But it's important because we need bridges, we need housing, we need commercial property, and cities are really skyscrapers. And the more people you can fit in a square footage, real estate is important, and you need to have something designed safely. But also not just safely, but the same design could be very poor and uh, you can spend the same amount of effort designing something beautiful as you can designing something really ugly. And I see it everywhere. When you're walking around your neighborhood and you see new houses going up, some are built so beautifully, and it's the same amount of effort than that somebody designed something that looks very odd. So I really encourage that to consider.
So whenever we go out and we see all the buildings left and right, does it mean that there was a structural engineer involved in every one of them? Or are there some buildings, like for example, residential house, that you don't need a structural engineer?
You're right. In building houses, you don't need a structural engineer, but there's a certain size of house that you do need a structural engineer, and you need other engineers to work on. All buildings, such as the condos and the malls, the commercial, residential, large multi-story buildings, require structural engineering.